This video is entitled System Acquisition, and it goes along with topic 7 of our course Systems Analysis and Design. I'm Dr. Renaud from Shawnee State University, and I'll be taking you through this video presentation. This presentation goes along with chapter 7 of the book Systems Analysis and Design, 7th edition by Dennis Wixom Roth, that's published by the Wiley. For the first 6 chapters, we've been talking about project selection and we've been talking about analysis. And at this point, you may, in your heart and your team and everybody may think, well, we've done all this analysis. We've got these data flow diagrams, these entity relationship diagrams, these use cases, these use case models. Why don't we develop it ourselves? Not so fast. At this point, we've spent all of this time to understand the problem. We've not done all this analysis work so that we can jump right in and write code and ignore all the other possibilities here. We've done this so that we fully understand the problem. And what we're going to do with this topic is that we're going to try to create a design strategy. Now that we know what we need, how are we going to solve those needs? And there are lots of different ways to do it besides just developing a custom system ourselves. So in general, the 3 things that we can do at this point, now that we've done our analysis, we've decided the project is meaningful, we know what we know what we need. Now we need to figure out what we're going to do. And there are 3 kind of things that we can do, and we'll talk about each of them in detail. We can go ahead and do the internal custom development. We can go purchase an existing package, or packages plural, and do system integration and bring them together. Or we can outsource the project to developers or outsource the project to somebody else to solve our problems. First option is to develop it ourselves, to custom do the code. Now, the great thing about custom code, especially custom code done in-house, is it's flexible. We can do anything we want. We're creating it from scratch. We're making something new, so it's flexible. It can be exactly what we want. We can be creative as can be because there are no limits other than budget and time and quality. But those are limits to anything we try to do. So we can be extremely creative in our solution to solve the problems that we've analyzed, that we've created, understood in our analysis. Now, it requires technical expertise. We've got to have database people, network people, software people on staff, or we've got to bring them into staff. And that gets expensive. If we already have those development people, though, why wouldn't we consider using them for the project, especially if it's something that we can be creative with? Now, also, in addition to requiring these technical skills, it builds those technical skills within our company. For instance, if we hire somebody, they're on our staff, and when this project is done, when this system is built, maybe we can use them for another system, and their institutional knowledge is growing. Our managers, our project managers, and other people who have been intimately involved in this custom build also have developed knowledge and developed technical skills to be able to pull off the next project or to maintain this project. So there's a real reason. I mean, it's a business asset that we're creating here. In addition to the software, the knowledge that our employees and that our people will gain and the skills. It's a big effort, and it's a huge commitment. I mean, it's going to require hiring people, it's going to require office space, it's going to require time, and it's risky. If we're not development experts and we're going to build a team of development experts, did you get the right people? Is it the right team? Is the team going to work? Are we going to be able to do it? So there's a lot of risk involved in full custom development. And really, what I'd like to say is that only consider this if your project is really unique. Only consider custom code if your project is really unique. If it's a problem businesses around the country or around the world have solved countless times, let's look at maybe purchasing some software or outsourcing. So let's look at the second alternative, purchasing the software. And I put lease up there because often when we purchase a piece of software, what we've purchased is a license to the software, and we don't own it. We own the privilege of using it or lease the privilege of using it. Many applications and many needs after the analysis, we may find out, our needs aren't that unique. For instance, our need for a payroll system. Well, every business in the country, every business in the world handles payroll. So, do we really need a custom payroll system? Well, over the years, I've had a client that we couldn't find a solution that would work for them, and we needed something a little more custom. But for an accounts receivable problem, invoices, getting money in, making deposits, direct deposits, ACHs, accounts payable, processes of paying vendors, paying customer or paying suppliers. A lot of those things are kind of pretty well in the can. I mean, there's really not much custom you can do. It may be a lot more efficient to buy a piece of software. Um, and the great thing about buying a good piece of software from a reputable person, reputable vendor, is that you get their experience and their knowledge. They know what they're doing. They've developed this software for dozens or hundreds of other companies, and they understand the processes. So you're buying their experience, you're buying their knowledge, you're buying their training, their setup, their documentation, and all of that in addition to what you're buying, the software you're buying. Now, you've got the problem that you may be buying, you may be tying yourself too closely to a single vendor. Be sure that if you're going to purchase a piece of software, that you're not locking yourself into a vendor that you're not going to be able to do business with long term. So you be careful with vendor lock, as we might call it. There are a lot of packages, lots of software that exists that allow you to customize it, that allow you to change settings, that even allow you to script modifications into it so that your copy is different than the fellow down the road or in the next business in the next state. That's so there could be some customization, and that the knowledge we've gained from analysis is going to be used to help create all of that customization. And lastly, there's almost always the need with a piece of package software to do systems integration. For instance, we have a package system that does this, and we've got a different package from a different vendor that does this. Well, do we need data to flow between those processes and between those packages? And the answer to that is often yes. What about those custom packages that do very custom things but create invoices or create vouchers to pay or create payroll to pay? Well, that would be a place where our custom system creates transactions that need to go into this package. So systems integration is a really big part of buying a serious business package and being able to open up the API, the applications process, and go in and look at the application and look at the data stores and look at the data and be able to get the data out of that system and put the data you need back into the system is something that we need to look very, very hard, very, very diligently at when we're looking at a package. The third way that we can acquire a piece of software is to outsource it. Just let somebody else do it. Hey, you're the expert. You do it. You take care of it. Outsource it. Um, the outside vendor gets to provide the service, gets to provide the experts. HP and IBM are biggies in the outsourcing business, but there are lots of others. Um, you don't develop much internal expertise at all when you outsource something. Um, you don't control the data when you outsource something. Um, you've basically given your data to somebody else, and you've got to have a complete trust in that outsourced vendor. But for an example, there's a company called ADP. that does payroll for companies around the world, small to huge companies around the world, just all over. Well, there you go. There's an example of, you know, lots of people use ADP. They're a big company. They've got service guarantees. They're HIPAA compliant. They're all of those things that you gotta be to be a big payroll processor. So for us to send our data to ADP and just let them deal with it, maybe it makes a lot of sense. We don't have to have all of the expertise in house. We don't have to have the knowledge in house. Just buy it from them. Just outsource it entirely. Um, we may outsource something as simple as PC maintenance to a company that would have one of their employees on site or have one of their employees come on a regular basis to do all of our PC maintenance. And our IT people don't touch PCs, don't touch the desktops. I mean, that would be a thing that we could outsource. The really important thing to say about outsourcing, and I'm going to say it over and over and over again, is if you don't understand the problem, you can't outsource it. If you don't fully get the problem, if it's not absolutely something you know, if your analysis missed anything, outsourcing is going to become a nightmare of epic proportions. So let me just say that again. If you don't fully understand the problem, don't consider outsourcing. And do you really trust this third party that you're giving your data, that you're giving your stuff to? Again, somebody like a payroll processor, well, that kind of makes sense. There are three ways that we can pay our outsourcers. There are three kinds of contracts in general that we deal with outsourcing companies. The first type is a time and material contract where we basically say, we'll pay you for every hour or day or man hour or whatever, plus any other costs. We'll pay you this rate for this we'll pay you. It's a time and material. So if the vendor spends 100 hours, we pay them for 100 hours. If the vendor buys this stuff, we pay them for that stuff. So it's basically just time and material. Now, the thing with time and material contracts, they're good for the vendor because the vendor, the company that's doing the outsourcing, um, it's good for them because if it takes them a lot of time to do something, they're going to get paid for all of that time. So a time and material kind of thing. A fixed price contract is another way that we could often contract with an outsourcer or contract with a third party, and that basically is you'll do this for this fixed price, this much per employee, or this much per month, or this much per year. Well, that puts all of the risk on the outsourcing company, the company that's doing the outsourcing, the company that's actually doing the work, because if it blows up and it takes a lot more time, then they're going to have to kind of eat it themselves. So that actually puts a lot of the risk on them away from us. But if our contract with them doesn't explicitly state everything we want in minute details, then they're going to potentially say, well, it wasn't in the contract, it wasn't in the deal, it's not covered in our fixed price. Problem. The third way that contracting is often done with an outsourcer or in business in general is known as a value added contract. A value added contract basically says that, well, you saved us $100,000 in by this outsourcing. We were able to reduce our expense by $100,000. We're going to give you 80% of our savings, or we're going to pay you, a percentage of our income. That package that we bought from you or that outsourcing that we did from you made us $5 million. Woo, yay! We're going to give you 2/3 of it, or we're going to give you 80% of it, or we're going to give you 50% of it. So that means that your outsourcing company has skin in the game. So the better they do for you, the more they make for you. So that's kind of another interesting way, a value added kind of way. So those are three main types of contracts with outsourcers. There could be some others and combinations, but those are the three I need you to have really down pat. And hopefully you've seen these in your business law class and talked about these in your other management courses. So there are a couple of specific models in outsourcing that I wanted to talk about, and the first is known as the application service provider, or ASP. And what an application service provider does is they supply servers, software, storage for a monthly or annual fee. Now, what they're providing is somebody else's software usually. Or they say, well, here, we have this software that we wrote in house, but we don't want to take care of it anymore. Outsource it. So we give you our software, and this application service provider runs software that we own or we purchased from somebody else, and then runs it on their server storage, security networks, and all of that, and charges just a simple monthly or annual fee for doing that, moving it off of our servers and putting it onto your servers. There's another model known as SaaS, or software as a service, which is kind of like an ASP, an application service provider, except it's an ASP that runs their very own software. So if you've got software that they wrote that they're running on their servers and you're just using their application on their equipment, that would be software as a service. You're not buying software. You're just paying a monthly subscription to use the software, the service, and everything. I mean, that's kind of nice. For maybe a project management software, maybe for a communications software, maybe for a phone system software, maybe for a payroll system. That would maybe be a really great way to outsource that so we don't have to have all of that expertise if it's not part of our strategic business. And remember, I said this before, I'm going to say it again and again and again and again. If you don't understand it, don't outsource it. It's going to be a nightmare of epic proportions for you and the person who's trying to do it, or the organization that's trying to do it for you. This concludes presentation 7A for our Systems Analysis and Design course. This presentation was copyright 2020 by James M. Renault, PhD. All rights are reserved. I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again in a future presentation.